Hi everyone, my name is Heather. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're doing well. It's September. I'm so excited. This is my favorite month. I have been taking my kid to school, my son. We've been walking to school in the mornings as well as on the way back. And well, he's been riding his bike and I've been sort of jogging behind him. And anyway, on the way back one day, I was looking around and I realized that how many reds there are. The first leaves of the season are always the red ones, and they're all very bright and beautiful red right now, as well as the berries. All the trees have some berry or another that is just beautiful. On top of it, the hydrangeas are taking on that deep rose color. I have some over here that I picked from my garden. And my gladiolas, which are pink, are starting to bloom. I had a bit of a surprise this year. We had a white gladiola come up. They're usually all sort of a rose pinkish color, and we had a white one, so that was really interesting. Tomatoes are ripe, apples are ripe, we're picking apples, and the season just has this wonderful sort of red tone to it. So I decided to theme this video after the sweet reds of September. So I hope you enjoyed the intro. Today I am drinking cardamom chai, and I'm drinking it in my mug that I painted last year that has our chipmunk under our grapevines. The grapes kind of take on this sort of reddish purple look to them as well. So today I am going to do another read a book by the decade. I wasn't sure I was going to have enough books. I wasn't sure that all the decades were going to be filled, but when I looked back all the autumn themed books that we've read, I realized that I have it in me to do yet another one. I'm not sure about next year, but I do have another autumn themed read a book by the decade for this year. So I'm excited to share that with you. The only caveat being that I made a mistake and thought that my 2020s entry was a 2020s book when actually it was published in 2019. I have a book that I was going to show you in my book haul video that's coming soon, so I ended up pulling that out and using that as my 2020s. I'm going to take a sip and we'll get started. I'm going to begin with the 1800s, and the book I'd like to recommend for the 1800s is Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was published in 1847, and I am so excited to tell you guys that I just did an Illustrator Explore on Jane Eyre, and I found so many illustrators. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to find as many as I did. I thought it was going to be an easy one, a quick one, and it wasn't. It took me quite a while, and there's still several that I would love to get a hold of and picture. If you're interested, I'll put the link in the description box to my website, to my blog post, so you can see the illustrators of Jane Eyre. I chose this one to show you guys because of the autumn leaves, and it's illustrated by Kathy Mitchell. They're just so beautiful. I love the black and white line drawings as well. They're gorgeous. I love this one. It looks so cozy by the fire. And another black and white one. I love the characters. It's very easy to identify with the character of Jane Eyre, but also Mr. Rochester. Also, every single one of the characters, it's easy to put yourself in their positions and understand where they come from. And that is always, for me, the signs of a great work. Another reason that I think of Jane Eyre in the autumn is because so much of it is about school. Jane Eyre, when she's young, heads to Lowood School, and so begins her education. And then she comes to meet Mr. Rochester through educating his ward, Adele. And then later on in the story, she's again saved through teaching because of the school element, which makes me think of September and school. Also because there's this air of mystery and talk of a ghost that's living at Thornfield Hall, and the element of fear of not knowing what is causing certain mysteries that are happening. And it just has that very sort of just autumn feel to it. Now we're in the 1900s, and the book I'd like to share with you was published in 1904, and it's E. Nesbit's The Phoenix and the Carpet. We read The Phoenix and the Carpet not too long ago. It was over the summer, and discovered that it is a great book to read in November. It begins a day or so before Guy Fawkes Day, so that would be November 5th. And the children are setting off a firework inside the house. They set the rug on fire, and when the parents replace the rug, they unroll it and there's this egg inside the rug. Now, this rug is no ordinary rug. It is a rug that grants 3 wishes a day to the children or anyone who is owning it or in its vicinity. And this egg is no ordinary egg, it is a phoenix egg. And out pops this phoenix, and he's sort of arrogant. His personality lends a lot of the comedic elements of the story as the children go from place to place, and he is obsessed with the idea that some of these places are actual temples to him. One of them being a fire insurance building that just happened to use the Phoenix logo. You do not have to have read Five Children and It, which is the first in the series, to enjoy this one. There are a couple of references to the Samiad, which is the It in Five Children and It, but other than that, there wouldn't be any sort of interruption in understanding if you just picked up this middle book. It also has a couple of elements that are of its time. And so for that reason, I do recommend it as a read aloud, so then you can always just chat about it. It's nothing that I think would greatly destroy the enjoyment of the book. It's adventurous and it's fun. My son really loves this one. He wants to know what happens next. It's definitely a book, I think, that's written for children. Some books you pick up and you read that aloud and you really just get into the story with them. This one is definitely geared towards children, but they really love it. And I also remember reading E. Nesbit along with Enid Blyton. Enid Blyton is this way as well. And being just completely captured by the imagination and the things that are happening just completely blew me away as a kid. So I remember that feeling well. I love this edition by Alma Classics, and it's illustrated by Ella Oakstad. And like many Alma Classics, it is just the heading illustration that is illustrated. I'll show you a couple. There's one of them right there. There's another right there. And what I really love about these editions as well are the extra material in the back for readers. They'll have a little quiz, they'll have a biography of the author, sometimes the illustrator as well. This is what would be called a wish fulfillment novel. And so they'll talk of other examples, which in this case they mention Aladdin and The Wishing Chair by Enid Blyton. And one other thing I wanted to tell you guys before I go is it had some terrific references in it. The Water Babies is one of them, as well as King Solomon's Mines. Most of the events unfold in November, and it goes through December, through the holiday season a bit. But I wouldn't call it a Christmas book in any way. It just touches on events happen during that time, but they're not really centered on the holidays. It's great fun. The Phoenix and the Carpet, 1904. Now we are in the 1910s, and the book that I want to share with you is from 1912, and that is Daddy Longlegs. Oh boy, do I love this book. I also have this older version of Daddy Longlegs that I picked up this summer that's illustrated by Edward Ardizzoni. Daddy Longlegs centers around Jerusha, who later on calls herself Judy, so I'll just refer to her as Judy going forward. And she is an orphan, and one day a mysterious benefactor decides to send her to university. And she doesn't meet this benefactor, she only catches a glimpse of him as he is walking away from the orphanage. She sees his shadow and comes to name him Daddy Longlegs and refer to him as Daddy Longlegs. And the only thing that she has to do to repay this generosity towards her is to write him one letter a month. The first letter begins on September 24th, and the final letter, which is 4 years later, is dated in October. The overarching element to the story is about school and learning, and so I think it makes such a wonderful book to read in the autumn. And I believe it was also published in October, which, by the way, so was Jane Eyre. I forgot to mention that. Speaking of Jane Eyre, there's one night where she spends the whole night reading Jane Eyre. She also has this one phase that she goes to where Wuthering Heights is her favorite book. The very first reference in this book was the Three Musketeers. It's full of so many cute things. Judy's personality itself is just so endearing and adorable. But there's also other things that are really cute about the story, even small things. Like at one point, Judy opens up a book that used to belong to somebody else, and the inscription inside says, "If this book should ever roam, box its ears and send it home." And I want to go through all my books and write that inside them because I think it's so cute. It does actually have some wonderful description of autumn. Jean Webster happens to be, by the way, the grand niece of Mark Twain, so I thought that was interesting as well. She also wrote another book, a follow-up book called Dear Enemy, that centers on Sally, who is Judy's best friend in university. It also was a bestseller in its time, just as Daddy Longlegs was. And so I'm anxious to read that one too. I think it'd be very interesting. This is another Alma Classics, and it keeps the original illustrations by Jean Webster on the interior, but the exterior is illustrated by Simone Ciraglio. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name correctly, but I think it's adorable. It's really cute. And I love the leaves. Let me show you some of Jean Webster's original illustrations, which are just wonderful. I have always loved this one with the cows. So sweet, and here with the girls with their umbrellas. And I'll show you the Edward Ardizzoni version that I have. It also contains Jean Webster's illustrations, but with Edward Ardizzoni's illustrations added. So that's a really nice copy to have. I picked this one up at an antiquarian bookstore that I made a vlog about over the summer. There's a bit of an October description that I thought I would quickly read to you that I thought you might enjoy. I ate breakfast in the kitchen by candlelight and then drove the 5 miles to the station through the most glorious October coloring. The sun came up on the way, and the swamp maples and the dogwood glowed crimson and orange, and the stone walls and cornfields sparkled with hoarfrost. The air was keen and clear and full of promise. I knew something was going to happen. The Hardy Boys, The Tower Treasure. We read our first Hardy Boys this year and really enjoyed it. I'm a huge fan of the Nancy Drews, but I had never actually picked up the Hardy Boys. It's written by Franklin W. Dixon, which is the pen name of Leslie McFarlane. And the illustration, at least the cover illustration, is done by Rudy Nappy. Like the Nancy Drews, I wasn't able to find out for sure if the interior illustration was any other illustrator, but I do know for sure that Rudy Nappy is the illustrator of the cover. And the Tower Treasure, we open up on the Hardy Boys, Frank and Joe, and they are on a motorcycle and they're almost struck down by this person speeding down a mountain. And at the same time, we have a treasure in a tower in a sort of castle that is owned by 2 other siblings, the Applegates, and it goes missing. And they blame the caretaker, who happens to be one of the good friends of Joe and Frank. His name is Perry, and Perry, if his father goes to jail, who knows what will happen to him. So Joe and Frank Hardy decide to help out and prove that his father is innocent. It's very autumnal feeling. If it said what season it's actually set in, then I missed it. But it does have so many elements that remind me of autumn. Even the colors, the hair that the driver has as he's coming down the hill is red. And a car that is mentioned in the text is a yellow jalopy that actually becomes stolen as well. There's this element of mystery and the treasure, everything that sort of leans towards the autumn months. Let me show you some of the interior illustration. There's at the very beginning. There's black and white illustration all throughout, just like in the Nancy Drews, and they're wonderful. So yeah, that is my 1920s, The Hardy Boys. Now we are in the 1930s, and the book I'd love to share with you from 1934 is James Hilton's Goodbye, Mr. Chips. This book is so wonderful. It is cozy itself, but it's also has some sort of sad tones to it as well that really lend itself to just feeling like you've read a deep, thoughtful novel. And it just gives you this new lease on life when you read it. To recognize the effect that this teacher has had on the lives of so many boys who have come through his life in this fictional school of Brookfield is just wonderful. It begins in the autumn and it ends in the autumn. And a professor of the classics, Mr. Chips, he's sitting by the fire, he's thinking about his life, he's contemplating. Mr. Chips wasn't always the beloved professor that he became. It was through the love of a woman that really changed him and changed his life, that made him sort of think of his role as a teacher in a different way. And it's just beautiful. This version is illustrated by Sanford Cosson, who is from Los Angeles. Sadly, he just passed away in 2023, but he was a very prominent illustrator in the 60s and 70s, did a ton of covers for Life magazine and Time magazine, and his illustrations are just iconic. They're so simple yet so wonderful, and his illustrations are all throughout this book and just lovely. It's a very slim read. It's just a wonderful, heartwarming read. Now we are in the 1940s, and the book I'd love to share with you is The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes with illustrations by Lois Slobodkin. And this is such a wonderful, very quick read. It is a chapter book, but the chapters are quite short. And it follows 3 girls. One of them is sort of being made fun of and bullied by 2 other girls. The 2 other girls who are doing the bullying are basically, one girl is doing the bullying and the other girl is not standing up or saying anything. Even though she feels uncomfortable, she's just being quiet about it. Why is one of the girls being bullied? Well, she's very poor. She wears the same dress every single day. And in an effort to fit in, she tells the girls that she has 100 dresses hanging in her closet. And once she says this, it just opens her up to being ridiculed. Why do I recommend it for autumn? Well, first of all, it's set in autumn. The events occur from September through to December. But also because so much of it occurs at school. And I thought that was just perfect for fitting the school theme of the autumn that you get in September. Let me show you some of Lois Slobodkin's wonderful illustrations. Here's one of them. We read another book not too long ago, illustrated by Lois Slobodkin, The Spaceship Under the Apple Tree, which my son was actually asking about the other day. He wants to reread it. I just love Lois Slobodkin's artwork. Now we are in the 1950s, and published in 1959 is Marjorie Sharp's The Rescuers. And this one is illustrated by Garth Williams. And of course, in Garth Williams' beautiful illustrations. This is a wonderful book to read in the autumn. The mice are convening for their autumn Rescuers Society autumn convention. And they have become aware of a poet that is being kept in the Black Castle, which is one of the worst jails that you can be in. Mice have a special relationship with poets. Poets have always been kind to mice. For example, the rhyme 3 blind mice is brought up. And so they have a special place in their hearts for authors and poets. There's also a reference to Aesop's fables. Actually, there's a picture, to be exact, on the wall of a mouse helping the lion in one of the Aesop's fables. Recognizing that the poet is Norwegian, they realize that they need to find themselves a mouse living in Norway so that the poet will feel more at home. And in order to do that, they need to enlist the help of Miss Bianca, the white mouse, who is the pet of the son of an ambassador. And the son of the ambassador travels all over the place, and just as it happens, they will be heading to Norway pretty soon. It's quite different from the Disney movie. The Disney movie is based more on the second book in the series, which is Miss Bianca, which I'm excited to read that as well. It's a wonderful adventure story. It's kind of a there and back again type of story. And I love this NYRB version. Let me show you some of the illustrations. Here's one of them. This is the one where you can see the Aesop's Fable illustration on the back. In the picture frame, there's the lion and the mouse. Here's another one of a wagon that's carrying a bunch of harvest veggies, and they caught a ride on this wagon to get to where they needed to go. I also wanted to read a little bit of October wonderfulness in the writing of Marjorie Sharp. It wasn't impossible to be happy. It was impossible not to be happy. As the great wagons rolled and swayed on their way, bells jingling, harness glinting under a strong October sun, through a countryside scarlet with turning leaves and gold with stubble fields, Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, so I just wanted to read that small passage to you because it just does such a beautiful job of capturing October as well. I had to stop filming for a little bit because our chipmunk is calling. I think he has stopped now. But if you hear a sort of a chip, 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 it sounds like a bird chip. It's actually our chipmunk. He's right outside our window, but you can't see him. He's down at the bottom. We are in the 1960s, and the book that I'd like to recommend for you is a book that we are still in the middle of reading, and that is The Phantom Tollbooth. We're almost done with it, but I could not recommend this or share this with you for an autumn entry, because so much of it is about the love of learning. It's an adventure story, a fantasy adventure story, but it's all about learning, both in regards to language, but also with math, and it's just wonderful. So we follow Milo, who comes upon a sort of magic toll booth that just shows up out of nowhere. He goes through this toll booth, and he finds himself in a new world, and he decides that he has to head to Dictionopolis. On his way, he's meeting all these different characters, and one of them is this watchdog, this talking dog called Talk, who has a wonderful sort of backstory behind his name. He meets other characters and sort of gets recruited on this mission to rescue the princesses Rhyme and Reason. So now they're on this mission to rescue Rhyme and Reason. And it's such a wonderful story, and there's so much to learn, so many play on words, also numbers as well, wonderful references to numbers and shapes. We giggle at the puns, and we just have such a good time reading it. I wasn't really sure exactly when it was set until just this morning when we were reading a chapter of it, and it mentioned that it was October. I had a feeling it was in the fall, in the autumn, but I just wasn't 100% sure. I mean, there's all sweaters and stuff. It is by Norton Juster, by the way, and it has illustrations by Jules Pfeiffer. Jules Pfeiffer unfortunately passed away just this year in January. He was 95 years old, so he led a really good long life. And he was more than just an illustrator, he was a writer as well. He wrote tons of plays. Let me show you some of these illustrations. Here's one of them. This is a copy that I'm pretty sure I just found in a book box, and thought we would read it, and if we enjoy it, I'll buy a proper hardback. So we're definitely enjoying it. I've wanted to read this book for some time because this is actually one of my little sister's favorite books. Also, some friends of ours read it with her son, who loved it as well. Fantastic Mr. Fox, illustrated by Quentin Blake. It's set in the autumn in the countryside. Foxes in general make me think of the autumn. Follow Mr. Fox as he brings a community together and introduces a new way of life after being under threat of 3 farmers that just have it out for him. And it's funny and it's quirky. It's about making the best of a bad situation. As far as Roald Dahl reads go, it's not our favorite one. It's not like on the level of Matilda or the BFG or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or The Witches. It's not up there, but it is still very enjoyable. Quentin Blake's illustrations are wonderful. And here's one with a badger. For the 1970s, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Now we are in the 1980s, and the book that I want to share with you we just recently read, and it's from 1987, and it's Eva Ibbetson's The Haunting of Hiram, also known as The Haunting of Granite Falls. I have 2 of them. I have this one with the cover illustration by Alex T. Smith, who you would know from the Nutcracker and the Mouse King Christmas Shenanigans, which I think came out, is it last year perhaps? I think it came out very recently. And then I also have this one with the cover art by Jimmy Pickering. I thought they were both very beautiful. The only problem is that none of them have interior illustration. Kevin Hawkes did illustrate the interior of another version, which I'll pop up on the screen. So these can be found with illustrations. Just unfortunately, this was one of those situations where you had to choose between the cover and interior illustrations. We love this story. It begins in June, but the real action begins in September. And we are in Scotland. We're on an island, a craggy island off the coast of Scotland, where there is this beautiful castle that's been in the Macbeth clan for forever. And the youngest son is the only remaining person in the clan, and he has made an offer for his castle that he cannot refuse. Lots of money, it'll take the castle off his hands, he can go to school. So he decides to sell his castle, much to the consternation of the 5 or 6 ghosts that have been haunting the castle forever. But they want to do what's right, so they decide to move out. They go live someplace else. This castle is actually bought by a Texas oil tycoon who moves the castle to Texas. And events happen from there. Eva Ibbotson has definitely influenced J.K. Rowling, and in turn has been influenced by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Almost every single one of her books that I read, I can see Frances Hodgson Burnett's stories in the story of Eva Ibbotson's. And in this one, I am seeing The Secret Garden, but there's also so much that has influenced the Harry Potter stories as well in here. And that makes it so interesting to read these. This book is about family connection, found family. It's just an adventure story, really. There's always the bad guy in her books. It has references to Sleeping Beauty, and there's some comedic bits. And this was definitely a please one more page, mommy, kind of book. In fact, this was one of those books where my son actually straightforward took it away from me and started reading himself. He just wanted to know what happened next. So yeah, I definitely recommend The Haunting of Hiram, or it's also known as The Haunting of Granite Falls. And if you want an illustrated copy, just look for the one illustrated by Kevin Hawkes from 1987. The Haunting of Hiram. Now we are in the 1990s, and I have to share with you a book that I just shared with you in my last video, so apologies for that, but I couldn't not share it. And that is from 1996 by Susie Morgenstern, Secret Letters from 0 to 10. This is set at school, and it's also a Monday in November when Ernest meets Victoria, who changes his life. Ernest is a boy who has been kind of sheltered. He's been living with his grandmother, and they live a very sort of dreary life. They don't really go out very much. There's not very much money to begin with, but they also just don't really have a zest for life. Ernest just throws his nose into books and he just reads. One day at school, he meets Victoria, and she just changes his life. It's about learning to forgive the past and just really just enjoying life for all it has to offer. There's mystery involved, just cozy and heartwarming, honestly. One of the best books we've read this year. It's not illustrated. It does have these wonderful little letter illustrations as chapter heading illustrations. Besides that, there are no illustrations. Now we are in the 2000s, and the book I'd like to share with you, published in 2008, is The Hunger Games. This is a darker book. It's a YA, darker novel, but it is utterly absorbing and difficult to put down. It's a dystopian novel, and we are in an America where there are 12 districts, and each district produces something different for the capital. In the capital live the wealthy people, the rich people, but in the districts, people are suffering. There's not enough food to eat. Katniss Everdeen and her family, her younger sister Primrose and her mom, live in a district that produces coal. There's mines. Most of the adults are coal miners. And Katniss's father has passed away. He was involved in a mine explosion. So Katniss is looking after the family. She's hunting and keeping the family fed. Every year there is what's called a reaping, where all the children have to gather in the square and they draw 2 names, one boy and one girl. And those children have to go into an arena with 2 contestants from all the other districts in a battle to the death. And the last one standing basically becomes the victor and becomes very wealthy. It begins on the day of the reaping. Her sister Primrose is in the reaping for the first time. She's just aged into it. And we follow what happens on that day. I don't think I ever realized how perfect it is for the autumn until I saw this beautiful edition by Nicholas Delort. Nicholas Delort is one of my husband's favorite artists, but he's also become one of my favorite artists. We have a couple of holiday pieces of artwork that we put up around the house around Halloween and Christmas that were illustrated by Nico Delort. They're Peanuts, Snoopy and the gang, Charlie Brown, etc. Why is The Hunger Games so great for autumn? Well, it's really a story about family and what would you sacrifice for your family. And I always think of family in November. When the main characters that are involved get to the arena, everything that they need is placed inside this cornucopia. It's about getting to the cornucopia, getting what you need, and then surviving. There's a mockingjay that plays a big role in it, and I always think of blue jays in the autumn because they flock back to our house in the autumn. They go somewhere in the summer, I'm not sure where, but they always come back and they spend the winter with us along with the cardinals and the chickadees. One of the things that I didn't realize until I read Mary Renault's The King Must Die is how much the plot of The Hunger Games is like Mary Renault's The King Must Die, which is based on the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. And I didn't ever realize it until I read The King Must Die a couple of years ago, which is, by the way, a great read. It was wonderful. It's one of my favorite books, actually. By the way, also noticed a few weeks ago maybe, that Virago is republishing some of the Mary Renault's novels. So I'll pop The King Must Die up on the screen so you can see it. I love this version also because I was worried that they were only going to make one illustrated version like this, but now I see that they are publishing a second. This one is such a beautiful version, just there under the dust jacket. Look at that, how gorgeous is that? And the back cover has a little bit of illustration as well. There's the spine. And all of the illustrations are in black and white. Nicolas Delort just uses beautiful black and white illustrations to really capture a mood. They're just gorgeous. This is the cornucopia that I was referring to. Published in 2008, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Now we are in the 2010s, and published in 2019 is a book we read last year and absolutely loved by Christian McKay Heidecker, Scary Stories for Young Foxes. Oh my goodness, this was on my favorite book list of last year. It was just such a wonderful read. But I can't really tell you too much about the story because I feel that you have to discover it on your own for the full effect of certain things to sort of wash over you. But what I will tell you is that it's about a mother fox who is telling her cubs stories one night, and yeah, that's about it. It's really a great read for autumn and winter. Some of it is actually rather scary. I say rather scary. Might be scary for younger kids, I should say. Maybe gives you, as the adult, slight chills. But yeah, we really enjoyed our reading of this, and we look forward to reading Scary Stories for Young Foxes in the City, I think is what it's called. The illustrations are by Junyi Wu, and let me show you some of them. I've spoken about this book several times, I think at least in 2 other videos. So I'll just show you the illustrations and not say much more, but it's just one that I really just loved, and I think it makes such a great autumnal read. There's the final one. Yeah, so the 2010s, Scary Stories for Young Foxes. I had a funny thing happen up until basically yesterday. I thought this had been published in the 2020s. It just felt so recent. And so then I realized, wait a minute, this isn't the 2020s, it's 2019, so it technically goes in the 2010 category. So I had to come up with a different 2020s. Fortunately, I have a book that I'd been holding aside to show you guys in a book haul, so I decided to put that one forward for the 2020s. So here that one is. The republication of Jill Barklam's A Visit to Brambly, Hedge. I think it was originally put together and published in the UK in 2020, if I understand correctly, but it's the making of the world within the hedgerow. And it's Jill Barklam's thoughts and illustrations and notes and origin story around the stories of Brambly Hedge. And looking through it, I find myself drawn more to the autumn scenes than any of the other seasons. Her beautiful depictions of autumn just really pop off the page and make an impression. I'll give you a sample of one of them from this book, this one where they're in the berries. It just really pops. And even the cover, often you see one of the autumn pictures of them gathering fruits and such for the winter months, and they're in the blackberry bush, and often you see that illustration on the covers. And you have pictures of Jill Barklam herself over here, and you have notes about how she created the story and the illustrations and her background, and things that are not really in the stories. Like her notebooks were filled with ideas and illustrations, and this is one of the ideas from going to school that she wrote about, how the mice went to school, where they went to school, etc., what they learned. Here are some characters that apparently you don't ever see in any of the stories. Some more sketches that she does. It's just a very informative book. Here are the end papers from illustrations and notes from her notebooks. And yeah, it just tells the whole origin story and the background, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I showed you guys recently I purchased the complete Brambly Hedge, and I just love reading them with my coffee in the morning, and that's how I appreciated this book. So yeah, just came out recently, A Visit to Brambly Hedge. I would like to end this with a graphic novel I've really been enjoying, and I was already going to chat about a version of this classic that has been out and is a wonderful graphic novel. I actually gifted it to one of my son's friends last year, but I just discovered that they republished a brand new revised edition of this graphic novel, and it is David Wenzel's The Hobbit. David Wenzel saw the need for an illustrated version of The Hobbit. It's been republished many times, but this one is newly revised and expanded. It includes extra material in the back, and it includes some double-page illustration, and it's really beautiful. Here are the end papers, by the way, which are just gorgeous. Here's the title page. I know that The Hobbit starts in the spring, or perhaps it's the summer, but it always makes me think of autumn, just because of the elements, I guess, you know, the ogres and the trolls and the hearth's fire and all that. It just always feels like such a great book to pull out in the autumn or the winter. And there's Smaug, and his illustrations are just really beautiful. Here's the trolls that they encountered in the forest. And yeah, just a gorgeous version. I was so excited that they were reprinting this. And this is going to be a holiday gift for my son, so it's going to go up in the closet after I show you this. I'm going to have to be careful that he doesn't watch this part of the video. And incidentally, you might be interested, if you are a fan of Brendan Wenzel's They All Saw a Cat. He is the son of David Wenzel. We actually met Brendan Wenzel. He came to a local bookstore and did a presentation for all the children. This book is wonderful. It's about all the various ways that animals, that different animals see a cat. You know, they all see a cat in a different way. And it's a really great book for teaching perspective and the difference in perspective. But he was great. He had a chalkboard, and all the kids would shout out what they wanted him to draw, and he would just whip up an illustration of whatever it was that they wanted him to draw, quick as a flash. He was fantastic. I covered my son's name up, but he did all these cute illustrations for him. It was a really great experience to meet him. And this, by the way, is just such a good picture book for young ones. Which reminds me, I need to send a gift to my newborn nephew. I have a new nephew, you guys. He was born last month in August. My sister, who lives in the UK, it's her son. Well, that is it. I hope that you've enjoyed all these books. Let me know in the comments which ones appeal to you, if you've read any of them, if you have any other recommendations for autumn. I hope that you continue to enjoy your September, and I should be back very soon with another video, and I will see you then. Take care. Bye.